All right, all right, all right. Let me get my stuff together. Let me get my stuff together. Hope everybody is doing well. Starting a little early because I've got to leave a little early. There we go. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Pamela, and you are watching Pam Entertainment TV, where we review movies, television series, and incidents in pop culture just to see how those incidents affect our daily lives. Listen. There's a lot of information we need to go on. If you saw my last video and my short, I told y'all, I think I should have known there was going to be stunts and shows, shenanigans, information, then a court hearing. And then it was, uh, the court hearing was either moved back, pushed back, whatever was going on. So we're here now because what I had intentionally decided to do, I was going to do the video going over the case and how that case has been viewed in the public and with mainstream media. If you have not watched that video, go check that video out. It is still up on my playlist under my pop culture chat. And then I was going to do, and I did that video particularly for my new subscribers so that you could kind of get some information about where we were, where we stand, where the case stands, excuse me, not me, because I just disseminate the information. So my second thing was that I was going to go over is I was just going to go over some of the legal information, some of the court information as was given out when we had hearings, all of this good stuff. And I was going to do another PowerPoint, and I was just going to do a recording and be through with it. But then stunts and shows happened. We had Dennis Byron, and shout out to Dennis Byron because he has been reporting and doing a lot of reporting, particularly on the Tasha K and Cardi B case. He's done some reporting on the Meg The Stallion, Tory Lanez case, and he's also currently doing some reporting on the Donald Trump in Georgia case. So he's been doing a lot of the stuff, but he did a little stunt and show. He just didn't show us or give us any information as to where he got his information from. So the information that I call stunts and shows is that yesterday it was reported that he did a tweet that said, and I'm paraphrasing, congratulations, Megan Good Majors. So when you take a woman's name and you put a hyphen on the back of it with a man's name, that signifies that possibly that someone is married. Now, I know how you young folks do, you're dating somebody, then that's hubby and you wifey and all this other stuff. No. But Twitter and YouTube and all the other social medias were in a kerfuffle about that for a little while, and that was the stunts and shows. And I should have looked in to see if any information was going to come out, and information did come out. So let me share my screen. I got a lot of stuff to go over, and I am going to go over some of the legal information. So stay tuned for that. But let's go over what came out today. Let me see. I need the entire screen. All right. So what I saw, this is Variety, and I didn't see Variety's post till later. Let me go to the Daily Mail. This I actually saw the Messenger, but then the Daily Mail has it, and I have used the Daily Mail before. And it says Jonathan Majors' ex-girlfriend Grace Jabari is accused of assaulting him and will surrender to NYPD 7 months after he was arrested for attacking the English dancer. So that was the information that came out. And basically, if you have followed any of my videos, you know about the that Jonathan Majors in June, I think it was June 21st, he did a counterclaim against Grace Jabari for beating him up. And so the police, he did it in two precincts. Both of those precincts took the case, and both of them stated that there was enough evidence for them to file a complaint. What we found out was that the prosecution, because they need Ms. Jabari to be a witness, and I believe she is the main witness in this case, that they were refusing to prosecute her. So that doesn't have anything to do with the police arresting her. They're saying that they're not going to prosecute her for this offense that Jonathan Mjaors put the complaint out. So that was the initial news that I saw today. So then we saw Variety. And I'm going to read Variety's article because there's some things in there that I think that we need to go over. And so Variety published a little later that morning. But let me go back because I need to. Now, the Daily Mail article was written by Claudia Aora. I hope I, not butchered her name, but that's who wrote that article. And the Vanity Fair article was written by Rebecca Rubin and Tatiana Siegel. And that article states the headline: Jonathan Mjaors criminal case. DA releases new details, including a police incident in London. Prosecutors in the Jonathan Mjaors case have revealed a previously unreported incident involving London police, which they believe is relevant to their domestic violence allegation. Mjaors was arrested on March 25th in Manhattan and is accused of assault and aggravated harassment following an alleged domestic dispute with his then girlfriend, Grace Jabari. In a new 115-page filing obtained by Variety, and they don't have any links or clicks to it, prosecutor says that they are attempting to get a copy of a London Metropolitan Police report from September 2022. While it is unclear that what the report contains, the filing referenced medical care obtained by Jabari at the time. So this is two incidents, and in two incidents, she needed some medical care that we know of. Jabari is a citizen of the UK, and Mjaors was in London during that period of time, filming season 2 of the Disney Plus Marvel series Loki. This development comes a day before Mjaors has to return to court for his domestic violence case. Wednesday's court appearance is expected to be one of the final pretrial hearings before the judge rules on whether to proceed or dismiss the case. The lengthy filing from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office is in response to the actor's motion to dismiss the case. It does not entirely lay on the DA's case, though it is intended to provide enough detail to move the case towards trial. Variety previously reported that the additional alleged abuse victims of Mjaors are cooperating with the DA's office, but we have not heard or seen any filings from these previous abuse victims. Oh, why this is not moving? Come on. I think I probably got so much stuff up. Let me just go over here. All right. I'm trying to move this up. Let me see if this will help. Okay. This development comes a day before Mjaors has to return to court. For his domestic violence case. Wednesday's court appearance is expected to be one of the final pretrial hearings before the judge rules whether or not to proceed or dismiss with the case. The lengthy filing from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office is in response to the actor's motion to dismiss the case. It does not entirely lay out the DA's case, though it is intended to provide enough detail to move the case toward trial. The filing also alleges that Mjaors' legal team has leaked and misrepresented court evidence, as well as attempted to have police create a wanted poster with Jabari's photo. Now that's interesting. It also dismisses the idea that the DA has any plans to prosecute Jabari for domestic violence alleged by Majors in a counterclaim, contradicting recent media reports that claim such action was imminent. So basically, what that report is saying, according to Variety, is that the prosecution is declining the, even if they got the information from the police, they're going to decline to prosecute the case. So she could be arrested when she gets off the plane, or has been arrested when she gets off the plane, because I believe that the court hearing is tomorrow or Wednesday. She can be held, but regardless of what happens with the police, the prosecution is basically saying that they're not going to prosecute her. The document offers new detail in the events that led to Major's arrest on March 25th. He and Jabari were taking a private car service from a Brooklyn party to their Chelsea apartment, according to the filing. Jabari, who worked as a movement coach alongside Majors on the Disney Marvel tentpole Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, saw a text message on Major's phone that read, "I wish I was kissing you right now." She allegedly took the phone out of his hands to see who sent the message. Majors then began grabbing the right side of Mr. Bari's body and prying Mr. Bari's right middle finger off the phone, causing bruising, swelling, and substantial pain. The filing continues that Major then grabbed Mr. Bari's arm and right hand and proceeded to twist Mr. Bari's forearm, causing substantial pain to her finger and arm. The defendant then struck Mr. Bari's right ear, causing a laceration to the back of her ear and substantial pain. After he retrieved his phone, Mr. Majors exited the vehicle and Jabari attempted to follow the actor. That's when the defendant grabbed her, picked her up, and threw her back inside and sustained substantial pain, including a fractured finger, bruising about her body, a laceration behind her right ear, and a bump on her head, according to the filing. The filing calls into question a number of media leaks that paint Jabari as the aggressor. In the time since the arrest, Major's criminal defense lawyer, Priya Chaudhry, has alleged that it was Jabari who assaulted Majors and not the other way around. Chaudhry also called the case a witch hunt, one that is saturated with explicit and implicit bias. Majors has pleaded not guilty to the 4 charges levied against him. A 5th charge of strangulation was dropped. We're going to go back to those charges because Major's lawyers have previously alleged that there's a video that shows at least one bystander calling 911 and that an NYPD patrol car responded to the location. And the defense has been informed that the NYPD possesses at least one other 911 call from the scene of the altercation. But the state is casting doubt on this depiction of events. The DA's filing says an unrelated taxi was pulled over nearby and police were called. This taxi is in any way involved in the case. It also alleges that there was no other radio runs, sprint reports, or 911 calls from the scene of the incident that night. Chaudhry has maintained that there's evidence clearing Majors of wrongdoing, including surveillance video that shows Jabari completely unharmed after the defendant's alleged assault. But the new filing counters this assertion, saying the surveillance video referred to the defense actually shows Miss Jabari visibly upset, crying, and seeking help from strangers to get an Uber cab home. Major's team has contended that the DA is withholding relevant information. However, the filing says that the DA disclosed a substantial amount of discovery that included NYPD memo books, phone records, medical records, signed search warrants, and related affidavits for the defendant's iCloud and phone. Surveillance video from 8 locations and witness interviews, notes from 9 individuals. The Manhattan DA office declined to comment. Major's attorney also declined to comment. In the wake of the allegations against Majors, the Emmy nominee for HBO's Lovecraft Country was dropped by his PR team at the lead company, as well as his management, Entertainment 360. WME still represents the actor. He's been cut from the feature The Man in My Basement as part of the fallout, though Magazine Dreams, a drama about the troubled bodybuilder, is still slated to be released in December. He also has a major role as the villainous Kang the Conqueror in the current phase of Disney's sprawling cinematic universe. All right, that's Variety. So that was the second article that came out today in regards to uh, reports that the police, when Miss Jabari enters the country, that she is supposed to be arrested or at least detained. All right. I think I have so I have one more article, and this is just basically a timeline by the Insider. The Insider has been the publication that the defense has tapped to give their side of the story, and I believe Variety and the Rolling Stones, yeah, that's the other article. Rolling Stones were tapped by the prosecution to give their side and give their information. And just a brief note that the Variety and Rolling Stones are owned by the same umbrella corporation, which is the Pence Company. So if they have articles, it's going to bounce from Variety, Rolling Stones, I believe Deadline, and there's one more publication, but I can't think of it at this moment. So, all right, let me stop sharing that screen. All right, so that's the information that came out today. So we had the stunts and shows and the shenanigans that came out today with the quote unquote, whether we know or not, because we haven't had anything confirmed in regards to the marriage between Jonathan Majors and Megan Good. And we had the information from Variety, Rolling Stones, and the Insider and the Daily Mail. So where does that leave us? Let me get to, let me tell y'all something. I'll get to it pretty soon. There we go. So, what I wanted to go over with you all is I'm going to open this, I'm going to add this to the stage. Now, no, that's the wrong one. This is it right here. So, I wanted to do a really quick summary of all the court appearances and procedures and everything like that for this case. So, as you know, that on March 25th, he was arrested, and you'll see. So, way I have this spreadsheet, you have the date, the judge who's involved in this case, you have the arraignment or the hearing type, and then the outcome or the release status. So, these are the different times that we have. So, in March, you know that he was offered a temporary order of protection, and it was a partial uh, order of protection. It was adjourned, and according to this, said he was referred to some problem solving alternative court programming, and he pled not guilty, and he was released on his own recognizance. Uh, in April on the 27th, there was a temporary order of protection that was given a full temporary order of protection, and they vacated the previous one and they started this one. Now, let's go back. I'm trying to make sure that I have this labeled right as I add the stuff to the stage. I think this is it. Yes. So this is it. Now, back in April, the defense wrote a letter and they filed it with the district attorney that they were wanting to have this case dismissed and that there was evidence to proving that Mr. Majors was innocent. Now you will see this documented. I have scribbled and gone through a whole bunch of stuff in regards to this document. And so in this first thing, they talked about declaring his innocence, saying that he did not do what he was accused of doing. They described the incident as they knew the incident. They talked about that there was a witness, and that was the driver who made statements to say that he witnessed the altercation and that Ms. Jabari was the aggressor, the initial aggressor, And he even now I'm speaking on parts that what he said later, but he said that Mr. Majors at no time that he saw put his hands on her, that Mr. Majors asked him to pull the car over. He said that he stopped the car a couple of times and then stopped it the third time because the escalation of the fight had gotten too bad. Said Mr. Majors got out of the car and he ran, and that then Mr. Bari had gotten out of the car. All right. So this is the information that they claim that really happened. That again, the driver had witnessed, but they had written this letter to the prosecution, basically asking them to dismiss the case, right? And you could go on, and I'm gonna try to make sure that I put links to these documents because if you go to the Insider and go through those reports, these links are in those reports, all these different reports. So we have this document that came out back in April. They had continued to ask the defense for the prosecution for information and all of this stuff in pertaining to that particular incident that happened. Because you remember at this time, let me see if I can find it for y'all. I'm gonna have to add it to the stage, and I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna take it out. But if you remember, at that time there was a strangulation charge. He had 5 charges pending against him at that point, and one of those charges was the strangulation charge because the charging affidavit at that point was presented to the courts by the police. You remember the police came to the apartment, because Jonathan Majors called 911 after he and the handyman couldn't get into the room. After they had called for her, after they had knocked on doors and couldn't get into a particular bedroom, he called the handyman. The handyman came. He opened the door. Upon opening the door, they find her uh, unconscious and sprawled out in the closet. They notice vomit and some pills strewn across the apartment. They also Mr. Majors was on the telephone with somebody too, so he has an ear witness that can account for what he heard going on during all this time. So they called. Mr. Majors calls the police. He calls the ambulance because he had to tell the people that he suspected a possible unalivement. The the paramedics come, and I guess in New York, when you call 911 and you ask for paramedics, that they do come, but they also bring the police. Let me read this. Thank you all so much for joining in. I'm so tired of this. I think it's a witch hunt and they got to dig up some junk because of the DA. Police and hospital has invested so much into this witch hunt until they now all have egg on their face. All right, Caliber. Thank you so much for watching. Who else we got? Hey, Dre. Hey Pam, I'm here listening at work. Good on you. Good on you. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you all, the rest of you all, for listening. Again, hit that like button. That's your entrance fee. If you're here, just hit that like button. I appreciate it. And if you like what you see and you like what you hear, hit the subscribe button. So you have this evidence, and when it first came out, everything was choppy. You remember how choppy things were because people were like, "Well, if he put hands and feet and toes on this woman, why is he calling the police to show the evidence that he put hands, feet, and toes on this woman? That don't make any sense. That don't seem too smart." Well, we find out, well, the police were called because of the attempted unalivement. We find out later that, let me, we find out a lot of things later. So let me just continue to where we are right now, and we're in April. So at the end of April, the prosecution takes the letter, but they do not respond to the defense. We go into May the 9th. Now, remember when I told you that the initial charging document or affidavit came from the police? We go into May 9th. Let's see. I think this is it. Nope. This is it. We go into May 9th, and this is the court hearing. And you remember back when the court hearing, they were saying that the charges, uh, that the DA put forth new charges, and it made it seem like there was a pileup of charges. It made it seem like the first five charges were there, and plus there were, I think, four or five more charges. No, that's not what happened. What happened is because of the body cam footage, which showed the police, according to the defense, being coercive toward the witness, Ms. Jabari, the victim, Ms. Jabari, and Ms. Jabari stating that the strangulation didn't take place. How she told the police at that time the events happened did not happen. The charging the charges that he was arrested for, all five charges that he was arrested for, they were dismissed. On May 9th, there was a new charging affidavit. And that new charging affidavit came from the victim, Miss Jabari. That's why in March 27th, they came out with there's a full protection order out. Because something happened between March the 30th when the text messages came out that she had recanted. Something happened between that time and this time that now the story is different. And the DA morphed their charges to match this new story. So anything in regards to the police and the strangulation, and I guess even what they said in the body cam footage and all that other stuff, the DA is not even going by that information anymore. The DA is going through the information that's from this new charging affidavit, which is right here on the screen. Now, this new charging affidavit states all of the offenses right here in this first paragraph. So then we get to what exactly happened. Let's see. Let me move my banner so I can read this. So here we get down to the bottom because these are just the legalese, I guess, to describe what all these charges are. And it says the factual base for this charge are as follows. I observed the defendant pull my right finger, causing bruising, swelling, and substantial pain to my finger. I further observed the defendant grab my right arm, place it behind my body, use his hand to twist my right forearm and right middle finger, causing substantial pain to my right forearm and right middle finger. I further observed the defendant strike me with his hand across my right ear, causing substantial pain and laceration behind my right ear. I further observed the defendant push me back into the vehicle using both of his hands, causing me to fall backwards. And then it gives that false statements made in this written instrument are punishable, blah, 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 blah. Notice the date. Now you remember that was a date that Mr. Mjaors was supposed to be in court. And then it was said that no, he can meet virtually. Well, of course he's going to meet virtually because in court, Mr. Jabari was in court filing this affidavit. And I guess they didn't want them to clash. And I don't blame them. They shouldn't clash. But we just noticed that is something interesting just to note. Does it mean anything? We don't know. It's just something that we've noted. So at that point, there was again a dismissal. The prosecution, the defense was asking for this case to be dismissed from the evidence that they had that was from that letter that we saw back in April. They wanted this case to be dismissed. So they go into the case is adjourned on May 9th, and it was rescheduled for the 13th of June. It was then rescheduled again because I don't know why, but they rescheduled and they adjourned it to June. And in June, the defense went in feeling very confident because if they dismissed if they dismissed the charging affidavit from the police, they were assuming that the affidavit from the victim was going to be dismissed, and that's not what happened. So they took back I don't know the legal terms. What is the legal term? They had the court to dismiss the dismissal, and then they asked for this case to go to trial. They asked for a speedy trial. Why is that important? Why is that important? Hey y'all, how are y'all doing? Hey Blue, thanks for showing up. What's up? Hey Gray, what's up? Thank y'all for showing up. Thank y'all for showing up. So, this is the charging affidavit from Miss Jabari that she did on the 9th. And we went from the 13th, June the 13th. That was rescheduled. We went to the 20th. That's when they asked for a trial, and they asked for a speedy trial. So, what are we talking about when we talk about this speedy trial? Let me I am going to share my screen in a minute, but I got to move what I got to move. I need a producer or something cuz this is a lot. All right. Give me a second. All right. Here you have, this is New York law. Now, I think in another video that I talked to you about that the state of New York went through a bail reform and a trial reform. And a lot of that had to do with the young man named Khalid Browder. And it basically put what this what the speedy trial has done is put a time clock on the prosecution as to how long they have to try a case. If they do not try this case, or this case comes to conclusion in this amount of time, that case has to be dismissed. Now, right here, it's New York law 30-30, and it's called the speedy trial time limits. And I'm going to read this because this is important for all of us to know, and then to understand why all of these hearings and all of this stuff is important. It says, except as otherwise provided in subdivision 3 of this section, a motion made pursuant to paragraph E of subdivision 1 of section 17030, or paragraph G of subdivision 1 of section 201020 of this chapter may be granted when the people are not ready for trial within, and now it's going to tell you the thing, 6 months of the commencement of a criminal action wherein a defendant is accused of one or more offenses, with at least one of them is a felony. So if they have whatever amount of offenses and one of those offenses are a felony, they have 6 months from the initial, let me read that again for you all, commencement of the criminal action to try that case. Says here, 90 days of the commencement of a criminal action wherein a defendant is accused of one or more offenses, at least one of these is a misdemeanor punishable by a sentence of imprisonment of more than 3 months, and none which are a felony. And then the third one is 60 days of the commencement of a criminal action where the defendant is accused of one or more offenses, where at least one of them is punishable by a sentence of imprisonment not more than 3 months, and none of which is a crime punishable by a sentence of imprisonment of more than 3 months. And then the 30-day one is just like, violations and tickets and things like that. So the prosecution, because of this law, has a time clock, and it's New York law 30-30 that gives them that. So the one that falls up under Jonathan Mjaors is the 90 days of the commencement of a criminal action wherein a defendant is accused of one or more offenses, at least one of them is a misdemeanor punishable by a crime punishable more of imprisonment more than 3 months. So one of the charges that he has been accused of is punishable for up to a year in prison. Okay? So this is where we're going. So I'm gonna move on. I want y'all to keep this in mind because this is important for you all to understand where we are and why that initial chargeable affidavit was thrown out. because once that initial chargeable affidavit was thrown out, the clock stopped for those charges and it reset, or it started again on May 9th when Ms. Jabari came in and she filed her charging affidavit for the same offenses minus the strangulation. And I hope, let me know if y'all understand that. Just put a thumbs up in the chat if you all are understanding what I just said. So the initial chargeable affidavit, the initial offense is out. The strangulation and those initial charges that he had, even though they're the same ones, they're out because they knew they couldn't prove that strangulation charge, because they knew that that was a false allegation or a coerced allegation dealing with a young lady who had at that point appeared that she had possibly tried to unalive herself. And there was the assertion, according to what the defense said, that was on the body cam footage, that she had extorted 19 times, that he did not strangle her. She did not know. I did not know. I did not know. No, he didn't strangle me. I don't know what happened. What happened to my finger? Because at that point, she didn't know what happened to her finger. She didn't even know what happened to her face. She didn't even know how she got in the closet. She didn't know any of those things. Okay. So I need for that to be clear, because we have to start from May the 9th when we start talking about this 90 days. All right, let's see where we are. Let's see. I just want to make sure that you all who are here, I appreciate y'all. I want to go up. It's been over 6 months at this point. It has. If you talk about from the initial, you talk from March, so that's April, May, June, July, August, September, October. That's been 7 months. But remember, those March charges were thrown out. Hey, Flavio. Yes, this is the motion that Judge Gaffey will decide today. Yes, Keita. Hey, Pam. Hey, Keita. Thanks for watching. Browder's story is heartbreaking. It's so bad. It is so bad. And I probably not necessarily do a video on that, but y'all, let's keep going. Let's keep going. This really is insidious. He literally did nothing. No accusation from the victim. Tell me what you mean, no accusation. Let's make sure to like the video to push your video out to more viewers. Thank you, Dre. Thank you so much. London police report. What happened in London? I'm glad you asked. Apparently, so let's move up. So here we are on June the 20th. They go to court, and the prosecution said that they were not ready. They were still in discovery. So the case was postponed to August 8th. So on June the 21st, Jonathan Mjaors went into 2 police precincts and he filed a counterclaim against Grace Jabari, right? Because a lot of us was asking, why would he file it in June? Why didn't he file? He didn't file. He didn't file until after they had told, I guess after they told him that on May the 9th that she was the one now filing the charging affidavit. Okay. So now it's his time. Okay, she's filing against me, I'm gonna file against her. So apparently in this affidavit that Jonathan Mjaors had produced for to the 2 police precincts, there was a list of questions, and I read that out in my video. They asked a question. Let me see if I'm paraphrasing and remember these questions. One of the questions was, do you think that Ms. Jabari is escalated to the point that she may harm your children? He said yes. And these look like questions that tick off a box. They asked that had in the past 6 months, had she grown increasingly jealous of you, and did you fear for your life, and has things escalated between you two? He checked yes. He also mentioned that there were incidents in London where they had been in an altercation or something had happened. He had hit she had hit him. There was this altercation and things of that nature. And apparently from that altercation there is a police report. We don't know anything about the police report. We had alludings to it in his document where he filed the charges against her to show that this was has been an escalation between him and her as far as their relationship and being physical, but we don't know exactly what happened. We don't know what the results were with the London police. We just know from Variety that they saw the 115-page document that the prosecution has filed with the court, that they're in process of getting this particular document. So we don't know exactly what happened. And when it comes out, I'm gonna get it and I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna see what we're gonna do with it. Jonathan is completely innocent, but his fame is working against him. Yes and no. I'll tell you later what I think is working against him. But thank you so much for the comment. The victim did make accusations. Okay. Let me see what this one is. Okay. It's mine. Okay. Y'all are talking amongst yourself. That's good. She was coerced. Okay. More like she saw her manipulative tactics weren't working, so she wanted to hurt him. I would say because we did find out through the defense that let me see if I can find it, y'all. Give me a second. I'm trying to find because I didn't want to have to go through. I didn't want to have to go through this one. Hmm, I removed it. But the defense had talked about the text messages. Because remember when they initially brought out the text messages, and remember that little blurb of text messages, and everyone was focused on the bottom two text messages. But there was a text, the very first legible text message said, only you would know. There is no no, only you will know. There was a myriad of texts before that. And according to the defense, she had texted him, asking her to call him back, you know, a whole bunch of stuff. So there, I guess these were tactics that she had used before to get him to comply with her. But they're not, but those tactics didn't work because he stopped responding to him. And I think that was probably one of the better decisions that he made, is that he stopped corresponding with her. Shout out to Chillmonger because he made mention of the larger blurb text. You can go look at my last video. That the way the text was written, there was too many spaces in between, as if someone was coaching her to say these things to get him to text her back. And so it was like she was texting what they were saying, and just making sure that she texted, or they were texting what they were saying. We don't know. We just know that the next blurb that came out when she got out of the hospital was more like the ones that she did, just a little, just slightly erratic, where, they just let me out. I'm just letting you know I did everything I could, da 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 da. But the way that text blurb looked was totally different. All right, so I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna still look through your comments. All right. So then we get to August. And so this is when the trial was going to happen. Now, before we get to August, the trial is supposed to happen. What we find out during the trial is that the prosecution uh, presented the defense with a 2 terabyte hard drive of information. And this was the day before the trial. This is information that the defense had been asking for since April. And the prosecution decides that they were going to give this information up in April. What do we find out in this 2 terabyte information that the prosecution handed the defense? We found out a lot. Number one, we find out that the prosecution had interviewed the doctor that treated Mr. Bari. We found out that Mr. Bari had spoken to a friend in England and had telephoned and texted her that she didn't know what happened to her. That she woke up and she was in confusion. She didn't know what had happened to her. We also find out that the prosecution talked to another friend of Mr. Bari. I guess it's someone that stayed with her. And you remember there was this full protection order put out. And the friend made a mention to the prosecution that Mr. Bari on several occasions said that she wasn't afraid to go back to the apartment. She wasn't afraid of Mr. Majors. She wasn't afraid of any of those things. And that she was going to go back home and she was going to go back to the apartment. We learned that. But the one thing that we learned, because you remember earlier in April or May, we got the video of Mr. Bari partying at the Lucy's Club. Well, child, what we learned at the from that 2 terabyte information, and I think we've seen this video on several pages, is that this is a video, and I'm gonna let it play. I don't know if any sound is playing, and it's not necessary for the sound to play. It's not going to be that long, but this is the video that shows Mr. Bari 5 or 10 minutes after the initial incident. Now, the initial incident is when they said that all of that happened in the car with the driver, the taking of the phone. All of this thing happened at this point 10 minutes earlier, and we do see her. Now, according to Variety, it shows us that she's distraught, but she's not giving distraught. She's giving nervous. She's not getting distraught. She's not giving breakdown crying. She is, like I said, she's nervous and she sounds a little frustrated, but she's not giving breaking down crying. But I will say this in this video, and one thing I noticed, particularly when I've uploaded it and chopped it and screwed it and do whatever I did to it, there is a glitch in this video. And it gives it like almost like the video had come to a pause. If you watch the video, because I know if you go to, I think Chill has it complete. But there is this glitch in the video. It's like it's enough that it seems like there is like something's wrong with your Wi-Fi, like there's a pause or there's something wrong with the internet, and then it comes back. So I don't know if something was cut. I don't know if that was just a glitch. I just want to point it out because, like I said, I want to give this information out and I want to give it factually and as fair as I can. And then you all make the conclusions that you all make. So you see her grabbing at her hair, using that hand, picking it up and doing everything. Now, this finger is supposed, as reported, is to be fractured. Now, this is when Jonathan Mjaors comes up. Now, you see that little incident. Let me see if I can stop it. You saw that incident, not necessarily because I know Mr. Mjaors came by and he kind of recoiled from her. But you saw when the lady right here had held her hand and was trying to keep her steady at the waist, how Mr. Bari just pushed her hand away and did like this. For those of you all that have had fractures in your life, that right there would have caused you to recoil. Because the way that woman had her hand, and you can tell she did not have her hand lightly, but she didn't have her hand at such a strength that she was trying to apply so much pressure. But she had her hand enough that had she squeezed the way she squeezed, Mr. Bari would have winced out in pain or at least done one of these numbers. And then you see you see old Captain Whitehead. He decides to, and I don't know. Y'all explain to me something. And this is just something I've just noticed that he got real bravado and then it just calmed down real quick because I know his girlfriend said something to him, but it just seemed like, was that just performative? That looked performative to me. I just noticed that because I don't think he was going to do anything. And as an uncle of mine would say, he wasn't going to bust a grape. He wasn't going to do nothing. But it just seemed real performative. And then they all walked to uh, out of the frame in the direction of Jonathan Mjaors. Now, you remember when I talked about that May 9th charging affidavit? Everything from this point backwards, the prosecution is saying, no worries, because they're charging him with what happened after they came out of the frame right here. This is what they're charging him with, because there was, according to the defense and according to the prosecution, there was fussing and fighting going on in the streets. Now, according to the defense, the police were called. Now, according to the prosecution in Variety, no, the police weren't called. Not to this incident. They were called to a cab driver. Let me get full screen, y'all. What cab driver? Because remember, at the beginning of this incident, everyone said that they were in a taxi. Y'all remember that? Everyone said that they were in a taxi. So what other taxi was in the area that the police were at? And let's just say that the police were at this place. You mean to tell me that the way you all described that hands, feet, toes, elbows, knees, and chest was going on out here in this street, that a police officer that was called down the street for a taxi didn't hear nor see or saw anything? Didn't call anything in? Now, I'm not from New York, but anybody here from New York, y'all let me know what's going on. Let me know what's going on. I'm not from there, but that seems that doesn't seem right. Something about that don't sound right. So they were called from another for a taxi that was in the area, but they weren't called for that particular incident. Okay. So we get into August, and according to the insider, one of the things that Judge Gaffey said, who was over that time at the trial, he told the prosecution, your clock is ticking. And remember when he said that, excuse me, y'all, that meant that their clock is ticking. They got 90 days. And now I am not sure if it's 90 business days. Hold up, we ain't got to be sure, because the law is the law. Six months, it says 90 days. So the weekend is counted. So anybody in the chat want to count from May 9th to now and tell me how many days that is? I'd appreciate it. And we're going to move on. Because the law says 90 days. It doesn't say 90 business days. It says 90 days. So we went over the new charging affidavit. We went over the April initial dismissal letter from the prosecution. Now let's go over this letter that Ms. Chaudhry filed, or this email that she sent to the prosecution. And basically in this email, which is dated August 21st, after they received the 2 terabyte, they informed the prosecution that 2 terabyte thing wasn't even laid out right, because apparently New York has a law on that when the prosecution is to give out evidence, it's supposed to be in some sort of order. There is an order, so it's labeled, it's marked when it who touched it, all that kind of stuff. All that's supposed to be labeled in there. They were basically saying, and I'm just summing this up in a nutshell. They're basically saying that the evidence that they provided was corrupted. They're basically saying that the prosecution did not provide to them in a reasonable amount of time, particularly back in April or in May, that they had information from the driver. They had interviewed the driver, that they had interviewed the doctor, they had interviewed all these different people. They're saying that the prosecution did not give them all that information, and they started to outline they needed this information. You're not giving me this information. You are in violation of the Brady law, which is a federal law, and all of their state laws. So that's basically what was outlined. They also talked about the fact that there was a search warrant made upon Mr. Mjaors' apartment. They don't know what they took. They don't know when they took it. This is the defense talking, and that the prosecution didn't label the things that they removed from that place, and they wanted to know exactly everything that they have, so that they can come up with a viable defense. Here's a listing of the stuff, and I'm gonna read a few of the things that they're interested in. All 911 calls placed at the time of the incident or immediately thereafter at Center Street and Canal Street. All radio runs at the time of the incident or immediately thereafter at Center Street and Canal Street. And I'm assuming that's like radio chatter going back and forth, people calling into the precinct, or the police officers talking amongst themselves around in that area, because I guess they want to see what cab driver that the police were talking to that had an incident in the cab. All Sprint reports from the time of the incident at that place. They needed the complete medical records from Bellevue Hospital, uh, including the documentation of the orthopedic or plastic surgery department. They needed the complete medical records from her therapist. They needed a copy of the I-card from Mr. Bari's arrest. They needed all the correspondence between the district attorney's office and the NYPD regarding the investigation into Mr. Bari. They needed an inventory of all property seized under the warrants. Because see, they went in, they seized property. The defense don't know what they took, when they took it, and how they took it. The name and list of the publications of the expert witnesses the people intend to call. So they've got witnesses that they're calling, and all this information, because again, the burden of proof is on the prosecution, not the defense. It's not for Mr. Mjaors to be guilty and prove himself innocent. It's for the prosecution to prove this innocent man guilty. And whatever they have to give it to the defense. They can't have a smoking gun or anything like that. So this is what this particular letter in August outlines. And they asked to provide readable, uncorrupted versions of the files, provide all unreadable and inaccessible files, provide viewable, openable versions of all x-rays. So they've got the information. So and that's why when the prosecution went in in September, and I'll go over that. But this is as of August 21st. This is the information that they were asking for on August 21st. So then when they get into court, which is they were supposed to go on the 6th of September, it got pushed back. And then they went in on the 15th. Now, when they went on the 15th, there was two separate hearings. The first hearing, because I guess because there was information in regards to medical records of Mr. Bari, that they had a closed hearing. So none of the court reporters were able to listen into that hearing. And that hearing lasted about 45 minutes. So by the time that they did come back, the defense argued to the judge that they did not feel that the prosecution had given them all the information that they had, and that they waited to the last hour to give them information. And they presented the judge with a 23-page motion to dismiss. So the judge was like, okay, I want to read your motion. They gave the prosecution a certain amount of time to answer. They gave the defense a certain amount of time to answer the prosecution, and he is supposed to make his decision which is on the 25th, which I think is tomorrow. Is that tomorrow? It is. On the 25th at 9 a.m. So that is the last piece of information that I have, and I think this is it. Yes, it is. So on September 12th, before the after the right before the hearing, the defense filed this motion for dismissal for this case. And there's a lot of information in here, and a lot of it is a lot of legalese, and I don't know nothing about all this legalese. You can see it right here. So, and I'm going to read my notes. I dissected it. I wanted to read my notes, but basically what the introduction said to me was that they want the case dismissed due to the lack of evidence, wrong victim, and denial of a speedy trial. Now, throughout here, they started outlining. Did anybody count those days for me from May the 9th to tomorrow? Did nobody count those days for me? Thank you, unapplauded. Thank you. That's 168 days. And what did the it's 168 days. Now, I don't know if the defense saying back in September saying anything. I don't know if that takes some days off. So from May 9th to today is 168 days. So here we are. They talk about his arrest on March the 23rd. On April 7th, they provided the people defense with the information. They provided, and here we go. This is where they were talking about those days. They started talking about those 37 days. And then they talked about because at that point on May the 2nd, it was 37 days. And so the defense knew that their days the prosecution knew that their days were numbered. So they reset the clock in May. And then, and as I told you all before, and I think I've kind of bled into a lot of the different things, they talked about all the stuff that the prosecution did not provide for them. And particularly, they did not provide this information. They particularly didn't provide this information until August. So here you are with information and discovery and all kinds of stuff that you have since April. Because remember, this happened March 25th. And so you're talking about an incident that happened in one day. So you had the witnesses that were there on the street. You have the driver. You have let me come forward. So you have Mr. Barry, you have Mr. Mjaors, but he doesn't have to be a witness or anything in his criminal case. So you have Mr. Barry, you have the driver, you have the 1, 2, 3 people that were on the street. You had the other people that were on the street, because remember, Miss Chaudhry talked about there were some women that recognized Jonathan Mjaors, and he stopped and took a photo with them. So you've got those 2 or 3 women. You have the three strangers that she went to the club with that night. You have the bartender that was at the club. You have the hostess that was at the club. You have the charges on the card that showed that she spent upwards to $800 on drinks and things for her and her 3 new friends. You have the text messages that went back and forth between her and Mr. Mjaors. You have the friend that she called in England. You have the friend she went to go stay with. You have the doctors and the information from the hospital after they took her to the hospital. And I don't want to even forget the fact that you have the police and the paramedics that were there at the initial call. So you've had all this information since April. You've interviewed most people by April. So by August, you should have been ready for the initial trial. But that's all I got. What are y'all thinking? Well, let me see. Let me read some more of your things back in your comment. Thank you so much, Unapologetic Simmer, for the amount of days. I sure appreciate that. What we got? The White Knight wanted to impress the ladies. Child, you was Unlike the folks back in the college, in the early days of Jonathan Majors had just come off Creed. I don't know if White Knight was going to be able to stand up to that. Now, if he'd have ran into Jonathan Majors, who was what 100 and what was he, 160, 175 soaking wet in theater school, he may have had a chance. I don't know. Let me see. NYPD and the DA's office may have bitten off more than they can chew. We'll see because we still don't have the video from the street. So, New York has more cameras out on that street than anybody that I know, from what I understand. So I would love to see that video. I would love to see if there's any video, because I honestly don't think that there's any video from the ride. I don't know, because it's a luxury ride. So I don't know if luxury car services record their guest in their car. I don't know if they do that, but I do know that the thing. But I do agree with you that I think that the DA's office and thought that Mr. Majors was just going to take a plea, because, and the reason why I say that, because if we look at this little thing right here that I did a little right here at the first part, it says refer to problem solving and alternative court program. So there was a referral made. There was a referral made for him to go to an alternative program. And I guess in that, I don't know what happens in those alternative programs, but I do know, uh, uh, I do believe that the prosecution thought that he was going to just make that plea so it'll all go away. And that's not what's happening. And I think they had to work. This is probably one of those misdemeanors that they have worked their hardest for, because usually, and I know from the area that I live in, and the issue that we see is the fact that a lot of men, because of the fact that because Jonathan Major's case is just a little different, only because he has the financial means that he didn't go to jail. He didn't have to, his job hadn't, he's lost a lot. Now, please don't mishear me when I say this. He has lost a lot, but he has the financial means where he can coast for a while, versus young men out here who, they can't leave a factory job. They can't leave their job at AutoZone. They can't leave their job and be gone for 2-3 days while they're in jail, or 2 or 3 weeks, or anything like that. They'll lose their jobs. So their means, and then everything starts spiraling out of control. Because if you don't have a job for 2 weeks and rent is due, and you don't have a certain amount of money saved up, even if you have certain amount of money saved up, things start spiraling out of control for the average man. So, like I said, I don't. It's still bad, because he still got. It's still bad, but I'm just saying that he just has a little bit more financial means than the rest of them. All right, people. What did y'all think? I did pretty good. It wasn't 2 hours. I didn't want to keep y'all long, because if you like me, you work in the morning. So I didn't want to keep you all long. So tell me what y'all are thinking about this. Let me see. I see a question. Can they get AB Allen to testify, since he inserted himself into this with a cryptic tweet about Major's character? I don't know. They could, if they want to, if they want to establish his character. But I guess the better question would be, because I know when he came back, when Twitter put his feet to the fire about stuff, he came out with another tweet, and I didn't grab that tweet, and I wish I did, because it's too far back for me to go back to check. But I'm paraphrasing, that he wasn't talking about physical violence. He just talked about the fact that he believed that Jonathan Majors was an asshole. He was an arrogant asshole, and he didn't like that. Uh, Now I do know that what was his name? Timothy. He talked about his time. And what's interesting about his tweet, I couldn't understand if he went to Yale with him, or was he just a did he go to school with him, or was he in the theater in New York with him? I never could figure all of that out. But according to Variety here, that there was supposed to be some victims that were testifying with the DA. Uh, the only victim that is reported from the prosecution from that night, according to the prosecution, is Miss Jabari. So if they have any other people, that's got to be a totally separate case, and they have to file. And also, depending on how the prosecution or the police label this offense that they have to file, there are statutes of limitations for certain things. So if something happened and it's considered to be a misdemeanor, they only have like it had to have happened within the last 2 years in order for the police to consider doing any action on it. Now, if it's a felonious offense, they timelines are not that important. But if they register it as a misdemeanor, then there are timelines on how far back you can go to file for that case. So that's the only thing that I can think of. But I guess I would put out there, were they talking to other victims or were they interviewing people like the friends of Miss Jabari for the case? That's interesting. That's would be interesting though. I wish is anybody in New York could be at the courtroom that can go to the courtroom tomorrow? Because I'm interested to see what's going to happen. Now, what do I think is going to happen? I think that they're going to be I think the judge is reviewing the information that's presented. The prosecution had 115 pages. The defense had 23 pages. He's going to review that information. He's going to look at said timeline because all of that is on the prosecution. And he's going to make a ruling. If you let me tell it, because I think New York is petty AF, I think that they're going to go to trial. That's the way I see it. It depends now if they get Judge Gaffey, because if you look at this little sheet right here, if you look at this and you look at the judges, they've had like 2 or 3 judges on this case. Yeah, Polly, Gaffey, and Wang. The initial judge, the arraignment judge, was Weiner, but we don't ever see Weiner. We don't ever see him again. But we do see Polly and Gaffey interchanging, and then we saw Wang at that hearing because they had 2 separate hearings. So it just depends. I guess it really depends on the judge because Polly seemed pro prosecution, Gaffey seemed pro defense. So it just depends on who they swing, batter swing at the hearing tomorrow. But like I said, I believe New York is petty AF, and I do believe that they're gonna go to trial. So what do y'all think about all of this? That is all the legalese that I got. I don't have anything else. I don't have anything else. Yeah, again, I believe that New York is petty AF, whether they're the judge, the prosecution, the police, and I believe that they're gonna go to trial. If they dismiss, I'd be surprised. But the way things have been postponed, the way things have moved on this case, I believe they're gonna go to trial. Y'all, make sure you hit that like button. I think there's 16 of you all in here. Y'all, please hit that like button for me. It'll help my engagement. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And once you subscribe, you'll be open to a plethora of movies and television series and pop culture chats that I have done. I appreciate y'all so much for hanging with me and listening to me and all this stuff that, you know, makes me tingle because it's interesting. But from all the information that you have gathered from all the different videos that I have done previously, what do y'all think? You all in the chat. Put a 1 if you think they're going to go to trial, or put a 2 if you think that they're going to get dismissed. Let's do a little quick poll real quick. Let me know. What we got? 2. Okay. Okay. Well, we will see tomorrow, 9 a.m. I'm gonna have my alerts on and everything like this. Quite sure that Dennis Byron is going to at least be keeping his nose open to see what's going on. His messy tail, sitting out here putting out the folks married, and neither one of their camps have offered that information as of yet. So again, thank you all so much for watching my video. And as always, people, bye bye.